Hi everyone, this is meteorologist Joel Curtis with your Alaska Weather TV show. We've got ex-typhoon Merbok. It is a dangerously strong weather system moving into the Bering Sea. It's early for our usual West Coast fall storms. The formation and straight north track does keep some tropical air in this system. The system holds together all the way into the Chukchi Sea over the weekend. Keep up to date. Please use the National Weather Service internet websites to get the details of these warnings for your local area. Also, NOAA Weather Radio, especially if you have power outages. Alaska Weather Information Line, 855-937-4977. You should be preparing now if you live on the West Coast, Alaska Peninsula, the Aleutians, or all the way up to Point Hope. And stay alert for any information from local emergency management officials. So the coastal flood will be for Friday afternoon through Sunday. Stretches out. We've got western Alaska communities from Point Hope to Hooper Bay, significant storm surge, wave run-up, damage to critical infrastructure is likely, and our confidence in the National Weather Service is very high. High wind warnings will also be out from Friday through Sunday for western Alaska coastal communities from Point Hope to Hooper Bay. We're worried about structural damage as well as many power outages, and we could see gusts 70 to 90 miles per hour. Our confidence is again high that this will occur. So here's our warnings. First of all, we have the western and central Aleutians already out for a high wind warning. Also for the Pribilofs, we have coastal flood warnings and high wind warnings all the way up the coast, starting with the Kuskokwim Delta, going on up through Hooper Bay, Stebbins, all the way through Nome, and then on up the coast as far as Point Hope. So, and we also have a wind advisory for the eastern Alaska Range. So for our high wind warning, again, gusts as high as 90 miles per hour Friday through Saturday for the southern coast. And then for a coastal flood warning, we've got some numbers for you here. We're expecting all the way up to 10 to 17 feet for the Golovin area, 8 to 12 feet for Unalakleet and Stebbins. Less so for the Yukon Delta, and 8 to 11 feet for Nome. So this is a very serious situation. It will be dangerous with all this water, and it is a major storm. We're expecting beach erosion and damage to the infrastructure. And then high wind warning for the more northern sections Friday through Saturday night. Again, 40 to 60 miles per hour, gusts as high as 90, especially on those headlands along the coast. And then here's our satellite image. You can see that old low has fizzled out for Norton Sound, and we have the our extra old typhoon Merbok has moved up to about Shimia. Last I looked again, Shimia 968 millibars and still falling. Here's the Japanese satellite. Look, you can see another typhoon off of Japan, but in the upper right-hand corner you can see extratropical system Merbok moving into the Aleutians. So for today's weather, 949 millibars is going to be dropping to as it gets right up to Shimia. I did see some lightning in the lightning detection system. Very, very heavy rain out ahead of this system, and you can see that weak low, 994 millibars, weakening over Norton Sound. Also a lot of precipitation out of the Gulf, south central, a little bit into southeast Alaska. And then for those winds later tonight, you can see that we've got a whole large swath of the Bering Sea above 55 miles per hour, and that the center of that low shows up as relatively calm winds, almost like the eye of a hurricane. And then as for tonight, that low will deepen to 940 millibars. Very, very strong system. Lots of precipitation out ahead of it, and of course the strong winds. We also have a weak low in the Gulf of Alaska, 1,008 millibars. And then here's the wind field expected for Friday afternoon. Again, well above 55 miles per hour. Most of the worst wind is out over the water, but Nunavak Island, Savunga really looks like it's going to get some. And then it's pulling out of the Aleutians. And then for Friday afternoon, 945 millibars. It weakens just a little bit. It's approaching up to St. Matthew. It's going to really, really slow down. Frontal system wrapped around it. Heavy rain out ahead of it. And those winds just driving that water up to the beach. And then finally for Saturday morning, again, lots of wind above 55 miles per hour, moving up into Norton Sound now. It looks like Nome is going to get the brunt of that wind, and also St. Lawrence Island. And then for Saturday afternoon, you can see that wind starts to back off quite a bit, but still quite a bit of wind onshore near Wales. Also still onshore in Norton Sound. A little bit of offshore wind for Kotzebue Sound, and then up to Point Hope there. And then we've got some easterlies shaping up for the North Slope. So for Saturday's weather, again, that system now weakens to 974 millibars. Lots of rain still out ahead of that system. Looking at our temperatures, we've got temperatures lows Friday morning in the 30s up along the North Slope, but 40s and even a few lower 50s for the rest of the state. Notice as you get out the Aleutians there, 55 degrees, and that's some of that modified tropical air. And then for Friday afternoon, again, some low readings along the North Slope in the 40s and upper 30s, but 50s for the rest of the state. And notice some 60s along the Alaska Peninsula. And then finally, our low temperatures Saturday morning, we've got temperatures in the 30s along the North Slope. Otherwise, 40s for most of the state and a few readings in the lower 50s. And then Saturday afternoon, we've got our temperatures all the way into the 50s. You don't see any 60s at all, and 40s along the North Slope. So our 6 to 10 day outlook, temperatures above normal, especially for the central interior. Looks like a good probability of above normal precipitation for most of the southern half of the state, and a decent probability for the rest of the state. And then above normal temperatures 8 to 14 out to September 29th, and above normal precipitation. So we're winding up here, but again, please stay up with those warnings. First of all, for the south of the Bering Strait, we've got south winds increasing Friday and shifting to southwest on Saturday. Gusts up to 80 to 90 miles per hour, and the winds will peak on Friday night for the, again, south of the Bering Strait. Storm surges 8 to 13 feet at the maximum, and also heavy rain, so you might see some river levels rising. And then again, for north of the Bering Strait, we do have south to southeast winds will increase on Friday and then shift to southwest on Saturday evening. Wind gusts 50 to 65 miles per hour. Again, you might see some of those outer capes gusting all the way up to 90. Storm surge with the wind pushing that water up against the coast. Water levels are expected to rise 4 to 6 feet above normal high tides, and the water levels will peak Saturday night through Sunday morning. Heavy rain and rising river levels are expected. So please be safe out there. Stay in touch with your emergency management officials. Listen to NOAA Weather Radio, especially if the power goes out. And if you do have internet connectivity, stay in touch with the details that are shown on our websites for there. And just a quick reminder that the Juneau Forecast Office is changing their public and fire weather zones, but not their marine weather zones. And this will line up a little bit better with the local governments and the emergency management officials. So again, please stay safe out there and pay attention to this very dangerous weather system we have moving in. Thank you for tuning in.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Hi everyone, and now for your aviation weather. Well, we have some really significant flying weather in store for you because of the old tropical system that's moving up in the Bering Sea. Extensive IFR across the Bering Sea, southwestern Alaska, Alaska Peninsula, and then we do have some IFR over into the Gulf side, especially Prince William Sound, Upper Cook Inlet, and on over to Yakutat, and then also the usual IFR along the North Slope. For Friday afternoon, we're looking at IFR moving up toward the Bering Strait, but still over St. Matthew and St. Lawrence, as well as southwestern Alaska, Kodiak Island, and then on the Gulf side, as well as out into the Gulf off of Haida Gwaii, and then all along the North Slope. For Saturday morning, that IFR continues, especially for western Alaska, including the Seward Peninsula, Kotzebue Sound, and along the North Slope. Also, we have some IFR still remaining in southwestern Alaska, on up into Cook Inlet, Kodiak Island, and the Kenai Peninsula. Then for Saturday afternoon, that IFR is all along the central and northern west coast, as well as the Chukchi Sea, and then on over in to the Beaufort Sea. And then we have a new area of IFR moving into the Aleutians, as well as some marginal VFR along the Gulf Coast. So, Anaktuvik Pass tomorrow, IFR becoming marginal VFR. Adigan Pass, IFR becoming marginal VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, both IFR. Rainy Pass, IFR. Windy Pass, marginal VFR. Isabel Pass, IFR to marginal VFR. Mentasta Pass, marginal VFR becoming VFR. Tanita Pass, IFR becoming marginal VFR. Portage Pass, IFR becoming marginal VFR. Chilkoot and White, both VFR. And our freezing levels, boy, these are amazing, up to 14,000 feet over the central Aleutians. And then, as you can see, it gets cooler as we go further north, about Norton Sound, about 6,000 feet, and roughly north of the North Slope, about 2,000 feet. I didn't even post the surface freezing levels today because this weather system is coming up as so very warm. And then for our icing on Friday, because those freezing levels are so very high, there's not going to be a lot of icing out ahead of this system, but in behind it, got some isolated moderate above 7,000 feet. And then I wanted to express an area on the Chukchi Sea on over into the western Brooks Range for some considerable moderate, also above 7,000 feet. And then we have a few areas, mostly in Canada, above 5,000 feet, although we do have a stretch of isolated moderate from about Yakutat down to Haida Gwaii on the Gulf coastal side. Our jet stream for Friday, 145 knots out of the southwest over the Pribilofs. We're also looking at about 100 knots as you get into southwestern Alaska, and then we pick up northerlies as we get from Yakutat down well out into the Gulf, ramping up to 135 knots. For our 9,000-foot winds on Friday, with that storm in the Bering Sea, you can see that 95 knots at about 9,000 feet, all the way up to Nunivak Island or so, and then drops off to 45 as you get into southwestern Alaska and 40 as you get into the central interior. Also, we've got 75 northerlies out on the Gulf. For the 3,000-foot winds on Friday, that doesn't drop off very much. We've got the storm center and 85 knots out of the west or so over the Pribilofs and up toward St. Matthew Island, but it drops off to about 40, 45 knots as you get over the western interior. And then for our turbulence on Friday, we're looking at a large area of isolated moderate turbulence from the surface all the way up to 10,000 feet. And then we start looking at our considerable moderate all along the Aleutian chain up to the Alaska Peninsula, and then also all along the west coast and up to the Alaska Range, just about Denali or so. And then what you can see is we've got isolated severe from about Nunivak Island, Cape Romanzoff on up to St. Lawrence, and also for the Pribilofs. So be sure to file a flight plan and fly safe out there.
Stop, drop, and roll in a pile of leaves, stargazers. It's fall, and I'm Trace, your neighborhood star nerd, and the fall equinox is coming on September 22nd. The equinox happens because of the orbit of the Earth around the sun, plus the precession or wobble of the planet on its axis. Equinox literally means equal night. Equinox. The length of night is equal to the length of day, 12 hours of daylight and 12 hours of darkness. That equality is used to mark the beginning of the fall season. This is a great chance to observe our closest star, the sun. Today, the sun will rise directly and exactly due east and set directly and exactly due west. If you have a perfect east-west road in your town, snap a photo for your Insta, because today it will be perfect. And tag us if you do. Grab something spice-flavored, go outside, and keep looking up.
Ever been to the beach and noticed litter like plastic bottles or foam takeout containers on the sand? Or maybe you've been to a river or bay where there's a bag or a car tire stuck in the mud on the shore, or a bunch of deflated balloons that say happy birthday floating in the water? All of that junk in the water or on the shoreline is considered marine debris. It's anything solid and man-made in the ocean or Great Lakes that is not supposed to be there. And anything people use every day can become marine debris if they don't dispose of it properly. And I mean anything. The most common items we find when we do shoreline cleanups are plastics. But we also find rubber, cloth, glass, metal, and paper litter. Sometimes the debris is so tiny, like a plastic microbead from your face wash, that you can barely see it in the water. Marine debris is more than just trash in the ocean. Sometimes fishers lose their gear like fishing traps, nets, or fishing line, and it continues to drift through the water, catching animals for a long time. We call that derelict fishing gear, and it's marine debris. Have you ever seen an old boat left behind on a shoreline? Abandoned and derelict vessels are also marine debris. So let's review. Anything we use every day can become marine debris if we don't dispose of it properly or if it goes into the water by accident. Marine debris can be very small or can be very big, and anything in between. But most importantly, marine debris is one of the biggest pollution problems facing the world's oceans and waterways today.
How does marine debris impact the ocean, animals, and me? Would you want to swim in a beach littered with trash? Of course not. And the animals who live in the ocean don't either. The difference is, they don't have a choice. Marine species often get tangled in debris, from fishing nets to six-pack rings. If they get caught, they could get injured or even die. And even if they don't get entangled, many animals mistake plastic debris for food and eat it. This fills their stomach with junk they can't digest. Debris can also damage important habitats, like coral reefs, by breaking or smothering them. Corals serve as the base of the marine ecosystem, and impacts here can be felt all the way to you and me. Plus, plastics have harmful chemicals in them. Fish eat plastic, we eat fish. The question is, can those chemicals harm us? Marine debris also hurts the economy. It costs a lot of money to clean up. and people don't want to go to dirty beaches. Boats and ships could run into large pieces of debris too, or get their propellers tangled. We need the ocean and everything in it, and the ocean needs us to keep it free of debris. What can we do about marine debris?
A lot of the trash that's in our ocean is plastic.
And that marine debris is hurting our environment, economy, and health.
The problem will only get worse.
Unless we change the way we consume and dispose of products. There are solutions.
And together, we can prevent litter from ending up in the ocean. Some people might say,
Well, I'm just one person, so I can't make a difference.
but that's just not true.
If each person who creates trash, and that's just about everyone, took action, it would add up to a whole lot of change.
So what can we do?
Well, the ultimate solution is prevention. And we need to keep that as our highest priority.
We can reduce, reuse, and recycle to keep debris out of the ocean in the first place.
You can bring your own shopping bag, drink out of a reusable bottle, and participate in things like a shoreline cleanup.
Join a group cleaning up the beach, or grab some friends and clean up your street. It's easy.
Be more conscious of how many disposable plastic items you're using. And if you do,
Where are you putting it? In the trash can? Whoops. Or in the recycling bin?
so here's the challenge. The next time you finish using a throwaway item, a bag, a bottle, or utensil, answer the question, where is this going? Because ultimately, when you throw stuff away, there really is no away. It has to go somewhere.
So keep asking yourself this important question.
How will you keep your trash from becoming marine debris?
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
And now for your marine forecast. And boy, oh boy, do we have some sea conditions in the Bering Sea coming up. First, we'll start with the sea ice edge, all open water. That's not a good thing when we have a storm like this moving up the coast. And so, just a quick update here. A coastal flood watch was just issued as I was recording the last segment, and it's from the Saturday through Sunday for the western part of the North Slope. For southeast Alaska, small craft advisories offshore, easterlies 25 knots, seas up to 8 feet. And on the inside waters, pretty light, seas, winds 10 knots, seas 2 feet. And then for Saturday, it looks like we've got a little bit of onshore there, up to 20 knots in the south part, seas up to 8 feet. And then on the inside waters, 10 to 15 knots, seas up to 3 feet, various wind directions. For south central, we've got, again, wind circulating around the low pressure system that's very weak out in the Gulf. 25 knots, though, from the northeast or east on the outside, and seas up to 8 feet. And then for Cook Inlet, northeasterlies 10 up to, and then we get down to 20 knots with variable direction down by Kennedy Entrance, seas up to 5 feet. And then looking on Saturday, the winds start to come around. You start seeing a few westerlies, but 25 to 30 knots in Cook Inlet, seas up to 9 feet. But again, on the outside, winds only up to 15 knots and seas up to 6 feet. And then we get to the Alaska Peninsula, and we're starting to see the real effects of old Typhoon Merbok. So on the Bering Sea side, up to gale force 35 knots, seas 13 feet for the Bering, and then 35 gale force is the max wind with 13 feet on the Gulf side. And then looking around 30 knots up into Bristol Bay, seas up to 18 feet off of Cole Bay, and then circulating also southwesterlies 20 knots and seas up to 14 feet on the Gulf side. Then for the Aleutian chain, a lot of storm force, 55 knots off of Amchitka there, and seas up to 31 feet. And then on the Pacific side, we've got winds up to 40 knots, seas up to 30 feet with a long fetch from that tropical system. And then we have Saturday forecast, winds back off quite a bit as that system moves farther north. Winds generally southwesterly, ranging from 15 to 25 knots and seas up to 18 feet. For the west coast, however, we're looking at gusts to 75 knots out there, full hurricane force winds on the outside near St. Matthew, seas up to 40 feet. And then for the west coast on Saturday, we start coming around the southwesterlies, winds up to storm force 50 knots. Seas laying down to about 27 feet. Boy, that's amazing, laying down to 27. And then finally, for the Arctic coast, we've got easterly starting out 20 to 25 knots, seas up to 7 feet. But then as you get down to the Bering Strait, whole gale 40 knots, seas 11 feet. And then as we get into Saturday, that low pressure center gets up closer. Southwesterly storm force 50 knots off of Savunga there, 24-foot seas. And then gale force up by Udiagavik, easterlies 35 knots, seas 9 feet. So tonight, that extratropical cyclone Merbach has moved into the Bering Sea at 9:40. Lots of heavy rain and strong winds, coastal flood warnings out all over the place out ahead of it. And then it moves up, but weakens to 9:45 as it approaches St. Matthew Island. Again, heavy rain out in front of it. High wind warnings all over the place, and we've got coastal flood warnings extending all the way up to Point Hope. So thanks for tuning in, and please stay safe out there.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.